Madeira, Manchester, Madrid, Turin, and Manchester again.
Aguero! Goal for South Africa! Goal for all Africa! Roma have risen from their ruins!
Welcome back to On a Yellow, the football podcast, and this is episode 14 called Face Off. And it's a big day today as Manchester United faces off against the mighty Hammers in a battle that will decide if one man gets his haircut. What's your thoughts on this game that's coming up in around 15 minutes, Zach?
Well, it's a big game for West Ham, big game for the United Strand. Lots of eyes on the game that necessarily wouldn't be watching it otherwise. Two teams on top form at the moment. Both teams have won 4 of their last 5 matches. Different sides of the table in the Premier League, but big match for both teams. United is trying to get back into Champions League spots. West Ham trying to make up ground for the relegation zone. It should be an interesting matchup, and I think West Ham will definitely not make it easy for that 5th straight win.
Now, as you are a West Ham fan, what players on your team should we be looking out for while watching this match?
Of course, Mateus Fernandes and Somerville. Somerville scored 5 straight games and had an assist in there as well. He was a big crucial part in our second goal against Burnley. He laid the pass on to Doof, who crossed it into the box for Taddy Castellanos. Wan-Bissaka is a great 1v1 defender, former Man United man himself, and Axel Disasi gets his 2nd straight start for us as well.
Well, obviously, I do not want your team to win because I want my fellow Manchester United fan, the United Strand, I want him to get a haircut. It's like day 496 or something right now.
493 today.
493. So
I hope it's 494.
And obviously, this was the first time Man United since the United Strand has started this challenge over a year ago now. Since he started the challenge, it's been the first time that Manchester United have been 1 game left. So I've won 4 games in a row because obviously the challenge for him to have his haircut is Manchester United need to win 5 games in a row. This season, we've been close under Amorim, going to 3 games in a row, and then we tied the last 2. And now we are at 4 straight wins, and 2 of them, or 3 of them, you could say, are the top 6 teams in the Premier League. Obviously not by table if you count Tottenham, but we beat Manchester City, Arsenal, we beat Fulham, and we've also beaten Tottenham. Now the Manchester United players that we should be looking out for is Bryan Mbeumo. He's kind of our main man, and Bruno Fernandes. Both of those players have been absolutely phenomenal. So Bryan Mbeumo, obviously, he has scored a goal this season against all of the top Premier League sides. And that is including Liverpool, that's including Manchester City, that's including Arsenal, and that's including Tottenham. And he's been a key factor in Man United fighting for Champions League football. As well as Bruno Fernandes, who is leading the league right now in assists and has gotten an assist in almost every game. He's almost at an assist per game, and he's been phenomenal for us, and he's been just a key factor in us winning games. He starts and facilitates the attack. He's the player that connects our defense to our forwards. And, of course, Bryan Mbeumo is on the receiving end of a lot of his passes, and he is able to get the goals for us, which is something that Manchester United last season were lacking. We were lacking that goal-scoring esque, and we really needed that, and it showed with the signings that we've made. Brian Mbeumo, Mateus Cunha, and even Shesko, who have been key players in us winning 4 games in a row.
Well, looking at each team's respective last 5 matches, both teams have scored 11 goals in that stretch. And, coming off the bench for West Ham, Callum Wilson is averaging the most shots on target per match for our team. For Man U, Bruno Fernandes is creating the most chances in the competition, the most big chances. And, looking at each team's respective top scorer in the Premier League this year, for West Ham, it's Jared Bowen with 8 goals and 2 assists. And for Man U, not Man City, it's Brian Mbeumo with 9 goals and 1 assist. It should be an interesting matchup between those 2 attackers, I think. 2 guys that can definitely score a lot of goals.
And also 2 leaders of their respective teams. Obviously, Brian Mbeumo is playing his first season, and Bowen is definitely not playing his first season, but both of them have insane leadership qualities and have really are really trying to drive their team to the win. And, the best thing about this league and the Premier League is even though these 2 teams, Manchester United and West Ham, are on opposite sides of the table, the games are still extremely competitive, and honestly, anything can happen. Manchester United have I would say, a not so great they don't really play well. They don't really have a great record against the teams that are facing relegation or are near that side of the table. As we've dropped points against Burnley, we've dropped points against Leeds, and we've dropped points against Wolverhampton Wanderers. So obviously, for your team's sake, those should have been wins for us, and it would have helped you in your kind of your journey to try to get out of the relegation zone. But we don't really have a great track record. So honestly, anything can happen. Now, formations-wise, what is West Ham running for this game?
West Ham's running a 4-4-1-1 tonight. Tonight in the UK, of course. Tati Castellanos leading the line with Mateus Fernandes playing a little bit more of an advanced cam kind of role tonight.
Well, that's really interesting to see. In the games prior to this game, has there been a link up between Castellanos and Mateus Fernandes that you've noticed?
I wouldn't say between those 2 players necessarily. I think, Tati is still trying to, carve out his space in the team. Mm-hmm. He's only played a couple of games for us at this point, and I think it could be, a good chance to see that with that kind of lineup tonight. That kind of feeder play from Fernandes. But I also expect Somerville and Bowen on the wings to send in some sort of crosses to Tati. Maybe even Doof on the wing can send something in there too.
The one player I was talking to you before this episode aired, or before we went on air, and I told you one player on your team that I was very kind of nervous for my team. And that is Somerville. Obviously, Somerville is coming off basically a heater right now. He is doing really, really well in the league, and he is someone that definitely could possibly get on the score sheet, especially against a team where, he scored, I believe, against Chelsea. In that, of course, famous 3-2 Chelsea victory where your team went up 2-0. But he's been very clinical for your team. And he's bringing back the old edits of himself when he was on Leeds, where he had this famous kind of edit to this one song. I don't really know the song, but he's kind of bringing that back on West Ham, bringing that flair, and kind of bringing some light back to a team that has struggled this season.
Well, head-to-head in the last 7 matches between Man U and West Ham, it is 4 West Ham wins, 2 Man U wins, and 1 draw between them. And Man U has not beat West Ham at the London Stadium in the last 3 times they've played in that stadium. So I think, if Man U can get that win, it's not against necessarily a great team, but it's kind of something, if they see that win happen, it's a true sign that times are changing under Michael Carrick.
Well, obviously, Ruben Amorim said the good days are coming, but under his reign, the good days were far and far between. Now, I want to bring up Manchester United's formation before the game kicks off in like 3 minutes or 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Before it kicks off.
The
in 5
light
minutes.
show has started at the London Stadium. The players are headed out soon here.
Headed out with the bubble show. Now, obviously, Manchester United, with Carrick, he's not changing his system and he's not changing the players that are in his formation, as is basically an old case of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Obviously, he is undefeated right now as a Manchester United interim manager, so he's just keeping with the system that he has adopted for these players, and that is a 4-2-3-1. A 4-2-3-1, but the front four, like I've talked about in previous episodes, the front four is very fluid, so they're not rigid to their positions. They will cycle around depending on where the ball is. They'll drop back deep, they'll cycle up to forward, and they kind of play a bunch of different positions, not just striker, not just cam. So in goal, of course, we got Senna Lemons, same D-core, same midfielders. Definitely players to look out for would be Kobe Mainoo. He has an assist last game off of a set piece, which now apparently we're a set piece team like Arsenal, being, I believe, second in the league of set piece goals. So I would look out for Kobe Mainoo with his build up, his ball playing ability, and just his overall way to be kind of a two-way player from the offense and the defense. Now, I would also, like I said, look for Bryan Mbeumo and Bruno, who are going to be, one's going to be playing cam, it's going to be Bruno Fernandes, and, of course, Bryan Mbeumo is our main man at striker. Then, since the Dorgu injury, we're playing Cunha, and who else is another cam? Oh, yeah, Ahmad is our other cam, and then Casemiro and the usual are starting. Harry Maguire is starting, which is quite interesting because he had kind of hints on a possible move a couple of years ago when he lost the captaincy. He had some links to West Ham, so it's just kind of cool to see that he's still a Man United player and he's playing for, of course, Manchester United in this game. Now, score predictions. What are you thinking is going to be the score between these two big teams?
Well, if you're looking at our last couple games, there's a bit of a trend where we go up 2-0 at half kind of thing. So, maybe we're up 2-0 at half, ends 2-1 for West Ham.
Ooh. You see, I want my guy, the United Strand, I want him to get a haircut. But I don't think the game is going to be easy. There's a lot of things coming into this game. A simple game that is just on a Tuesday night, and it's, Manchester United obviously wanting to keep their form, but they're against a side that's in the relegation zone. It is a game that is, for some reason, really big. Like it feels like almost like a final right now because of all the social media with Man United needing to win this game. I think Man United will pull out with the win, and I hope they do. But I think it's not going to be easy, and I think it's going to be another 3-2, like we did against Arsenal, but also against Fulham. And I don't think it's going to be as easy as our Tottenham match. I feel like West Ham is in better form, and it's going to be a difficult game for the Red Devils against the Hammers. But anything can happen. Now, you said 2-1. Who do you think is scoring those goals for West Ham and for Manchester United?
My bet's on for probably Somerville and Jared Bowen would be my two most likely scorers.
Yeah.
And I could see probably Bruno as the most likely scorer tonight for Man U.
I mean, that's interesting. I think definitely for Somerville, I said, Manchester United was going to win 3-2, and I think Somerville is going to score. And I think Jared Bowen could potentially score, but honestly, Mateus Fernandes could score a goal from like outside the box or something like that. I don't know.
Newcastle are 1-0 up on Tottenham
Oh, that's interesting.
just before the half.
That's good. And I think for Manchester United, I think Brian Mbeumo is scoring again. He's been really hot recently, and I believe that he's going to do it and score. Now, the other two goal scorers, it's really difficult to think. Like, honestly, I could think, like, Bruno or Cunha. But I think Shesko is coming off off the bench, and he's going to get one. And Harry Maguire header is going to happen, and a knee slide in the London Stadium. Obviously, Harry Maguire is one of the best players and most confident players when it comes to his knee slides, and I think we'll be seeing that today in this game. And the kickoff is just begun. The game's just started. I just got the notification on my phone. Let's just hope it's a good game. But I hope Man United reigns supreme. Any last thoughts on this game, Zach?
Not really.
No?
Kicked off on my stream just now.
Okay, there you go. All right, so moving on to across the pond. I wanted to focus a lot of this episode on the Canadian Premier League, as the Canadian Premier League is starting up soon. The first games will begin in April, and it's going to be just really neat. And obviously, Canadian Premier League teams are playing right now in the CONCACAF Champions League, I'm pretty sure, with Forge playing against Tigres tonight in the second leg. After drawing 0-0 against them in the first leg, they're going and playing against Tigres again tonight to hopefully try to show that Canadian football is something that should, and Canadian teams are teams that should not be reckoned with.
Well,
Now,
it's
what's
a
your thoughts?
record 4 Canadian teams in the competition this year. Vancouver Whitecaps, Vancouver FC, obviously Hamilton Forge, and Atletico Ottawa all qualified this year, and I think it's a great chance for the league to grow even further from the great final they had last year. Cavalry beating Mexican side Pumas last season in the same competition, and Forge being very competitive in that first leg. Dimitri Bertaud, their new goalkeeper, was fantastic in that match. I think he'll be a force to be reckoned with this season in net. Should be an interesting season, especially in the CPL with new club FC Supra and York changing their name once again to Inter Toronto. Kind of feels like you have 2 brand new teams in the league this year. It sucks to lose Winnipeg Valor. Obviously, you never want to see a team go out of the league like that, especially in young stages.
Which we've seen, of course, with FC Edmonton before. I think it's difficult within Canada, and I think that's just the reality of the Canadian Premier League at the moment, is that some teams may come and go, but we are still trying to build this thing, and we're doing a good job at it. We're getting players from abroad, players from Europe that played in Europe. They're coming to play for Canadian teams, and it's just really neat to see, because obviously if you're good enough and you're going to North America, you're probably bound for the MLS, but the Canadian Premier League is a growing league, and we're fighting toe to toe with these teams that obviously on paper and with market value wise are way above us. And you talked about Dimitri Bertaud, Forge's new keeper that used to play for Montpellier in France, and he kind of went from the A team and the B team. But he is, I believe, the highest market valued player in the league right now, with around, because I know David Rodriguez was, but he was only valued at around 250K.
Well, Dimitri Bertot at the moment is worth 900. I do believe it'll go down drastically just because of the league he signed in.
He was 1.5 in his prime.
Second and third place are two Mexicans that Inter Toronto has brought in on loan. They'll probably go down for now, and could rise again towards the end of the season after seeing some sort of form. But I think it's a good sign that higher quality players notice the league now and are willing to take a chance on it to potentially revive their career or start something new in their career. And I think it's good to see. Obviously, Atletico signed former goalkeeper of PSG in their academy. I think he's got more followers than the team itself, so it should be interesting to see how he does as well in the league.
It's always great to build up a league with really talented players, and how you get tickets and how you create publicity for your league is to have good players that are making really good plays. Obviously, David Rodriguez in the CPL final has the synonymous icicle kick, which went everywhere on every single football social media account, and that's huge for our league. It brings so much exposure that you really need when you're trying to grow a league from kind of like nothing, and you're trying to grow that league up. So Dimitri Bertot coming in that game, he had 7 saves and a clean sheet. And he actually saved it against Marcelo Flores, who obviously is now going to be playing for the Canadian national team, who obviously he was playing either trying to play for Canada or Mexico, but he chose to play for the Canadian national team, and he's been a real talent coming through Tigres, and he had a beautiful shot, which was beautifully saved by Dimitri Bertot.
Flores, he's been at Tigres for a little while. He was obviously part of the Arsenal academy. Played for Real Oviedo in Spain. Now he's back in Mexico. I think he's 24. I think he could definitely be a player that could come on off the bench and do a job for us. I don't think there's necessarily a starting spot available to him at the moment. Potentially, if he keeps up his form with Tigres at the moment, definitely he could, because he's been bagging a lot of goals recently, kind of out of nowhere, because he had a bit of a slow first half of the season in I believe the Clausura season, and now in the Apertura season he's kind of coming into his own and becoming that player that his potential saw.
And I mean, you love to see it, and I think definitely what it means is the Canadian national team is getting more depth. Obviously, we're going to be playing in the World Cup in 2026, which is coming to home turf. But the way you win a World Cup is not necessarily your best players. Sometimes it goes down to having depth, being able to sub someone on during key moments of the game, and having them bag a goal that is much needed. And that's what a lot of national teams need, and that's what the Canadian national team needs. It's great to see that we're getting a lot more players, a lot more depth. And, a couple years ago, I would say let's say 5 to 10 years ago, the Canadian national team's best players were playing in like the Turkish league. Whereas now you're looking at our best players playing in the Bundesliga. We have players that could be Prem bound next season if they get promoted with their teams. We have players that are playing in England, players that are playing in Mexico, players that are playing in the MLS. These are huge leagues and big leagues that are putting Canada as a nation on the map. And, we're going up the rankings, and it's just really neat to see. Obviously, the game here is not as big as other countries, but it's getting larger and larger every single day. And it's just something that is great and really cool to look at for future generations of players coming through Canada, that they have a chance to play the game professionally.
In the CPL especially, there's been quite a few Canadian players that have now made the move to Europe, and in the future could potentially fight for a Canadian national team spots. People like Samuel Salter, The top goal scorer is now playing in Sweden next season. Should be, another player from the CPL on that team, Matteo Debrien. I think that could be, he's done well there. Samuel Salter, I believe, is an even better player and could be, a big impact maker there and potentially get a transfer to an even bigger league before too long.
Well, it's really cool because if they get a bunch of these transfers out and maybe to bigger and bigger leagues, if you go on to their player profile, you see that they've played in the Canadian Premier League. And they can talk about it, and people do interviews saying, yeah, you started here, and they can bring and put the Canadian football league kind of on a pedestal. They can kind of showcase it and say, yeah, I started here and now I'm here because, that's what the Canadian Premier League has given us, is an opportunity and a kind of a gateway into much better leagues in Europe. But it's a starting point, and it's really growing. And, if you look back when the league started, obviously I think we had high hopes that the league would do well, but we didn't really know if it would. And now I could say that we're kind of on this upward trend where the league is getting more notoriety throughout social media and throughout the world. And now we're putting our teams on the map. And it's just really neat to see that obviously having a team in your hometown, you can go watch them and you can be like, yeah, I'm watching professional football, which is something when I was growing up, where we just didn't have that. Obviously, you looked on the TV, you would only really see World Cup games and Euro games, and you never really watched a lot of football. And now we're really growing the football here, and for young kids growing up, they can idolize these players, and it's huge. It's a huge market, and it's just really exciting to see what the future of this league will bring.
There's so many players that come to the CPL from MLS Next Pro, from either Vancouver. There's been a ton of players from TFC and CF Montreal that have come down a level technically to the CPL and have really excelled, and it's just proof that the Canadian league system can be a big league, can produce players and give players the opportunity to set themselves as outliers in, not necessarily, maybe not outliers, maybe big talents in the league, and get those moves, get those national team calls, even if they're not for Canada necessarily. There's so many players in the CPL that play for national teams that in both CONCACAF and Asia. I think it's great to see that the league has that international reputation as well, that players playing in the CPL are worth calling up for their national teams.
Yeah, and it again, it's just the exposure that the league will that would bring. Obviously, you have a guy that's playing for his national team, and the commentators are talking about it. They're obviously going to talk about where he plays domestically, and they're going to talk about Forge FC, or they're going to talk about the Cavalry, or they're going to talk about Inner Toronto. There's all of these teams that they're going to get broadcasted out, even though it's not the team itself. It'll be a national team, and it's really cool. Yeah, like you said, to have kind of national notoriety, and having people that are playing for national teams during international breaks are able to play football, and also play football here. And I mean, it's hard for a league in North America to kind of grow, because of the fact that we have to play in the summer, whereas every other league is playing in the winter. And it's hard to grow your league because, we're in our off season, but everything else right now is in their league. So when all these leagues are getting played, our league is kind of in a standstill until the summer months. And it's obviously a shorter season, whereas, than a big season in the Premier League. But that doesn't really matter to our players, and it obviously doesn't matter to people coming into our league because they want to play for these teams. They want to play, and it's really neat to see. Now,
in the Man U West Ham game, Senny Lemons just made a big save on a curling shot from Somerville.
I love Senny Lemons. Like I said, it is the first time that I saw a goalkeeper for Manchester United since De Gea catch a ball, and it made me feel it just makes me feel really good. Now, moving on to our more of our CPL talk. It's right around the corner. Our team is the Calgary Cavalry FC. And, we've been signing some players, and we've been losing quite a lot of players. I just checked the players that are either out of contract or have departed out of our club, and it is as followed. It's Marco Carducci, Tom Field, Fraser Aird, Shamit Shome, Nicholas Whaling, Ali Musi, Mikhail Gerashmenkov, Diego Gutierrez, Ayman Salouf, and Callum Montgomery. And I kind of just picked out kind of 4 people out of that large list. I mean, obviously Marco Carducci is someone that is kind of, is a big loss, but I feel like we got a good replacement. But there's 4 kind of people that I am sad to see go or either need to re-sign, and that is Fraser Aird, Shamit Shome, Ali Musi, and Callum Montgomery. So obviously Ali Musi, it kind of his play for Cavalry FC kind of just explains itself of why I am kind of sad to see him not be signed right now, because he's been an attacking threat for our team for so long.
7 years now.
7 years now. And, I feel like last season, I looked, it was his best season point-wise last season. And, he's coming off of obviously playing for his national team as well. He had 11 goals and 8 assists. And he was our playmaker. 8 assists is really, really good. I believe he led our team in assists last season. And I think his connection towards the end of the season with Toby was very promising. And I think they were just getting started with what they could have shown. And he's just, every time he gets the ball, he seems like he knows what he wants to do, and that's either dribble the ball, that's either shoot and score, or pass it off. And I always thought Ali Musi, just looking at his ability, was a kind of he liked to keep it himself, but honestly, having 8 assists and being kind of a player that likes to play with the ball is just something that's really good. He obviously has more to his game than just dribbling and passing. And being on our team for 7 years, he knows how to play for the Cavalry. He knows how to play Tommy's game. And he's also a great mentor and leader on that team that we've lost. So, do you have any more thoughts on Ali Musi not re-signing?
Well, it's a big loss for us in the attacking front. He's been a starter. I was just checking his stats. It was 5 seasons he played for Valor before us for a season, and he's been a staple. He's been selling tickets for this team for years, and losing a player like that so many people recognize as one of your top players, even one of the top players in the entire league for a couple of years. He was definitely one of the better players this season as well. And kind of moving on from a player like that is difficult. It's hard to find a replacement that can be exactly what you want them to be. And, he's a player that he plays hard for us and his national team. He's very dedicated to the game. And, obviously, I think he could potentially be going to Europe, maybe USL kind of league system. I'm not exactly sure on where he's going, but losing a player like that and bringing in a new attackers, it's kind of a new era of the club. It's scary, but it could also, benefit us in the long run, I think.
Well, I think the one thing I'm looking at this season is, another player that we're losing is Fraser Aird. He's been a veteran on our team. He's been playing for us for years. He started his CPL journey with FC Edmonton, I believe, and then he moved over to our team, and he's been kind of a staple. Obviously, he was kind of our secondary captain when Marco Carducci he was our captain, but like on the pitch, Fraser Aird was one of our biggest leaders. He had that veteran presence, obviously playing for the Canadian national team and playing for Rangers, one of the biggest Scottish teams in the Scottish Premier League.
Talking about, leaders on our team, we lost our captain Carducci.
Yeah.
We lost Fraser Aird, Shamit Shom, and Ali Musi, three players that, were some of the biggest leaders on the team, players that other players would look to for support, instruction, advice kind of things. Losing that many crucial pieces of a team, it's always going to be difficult, but it also means that those players that have been here playing with them can use what they learned from them and kind of step into those kind of roles. I think, Toby's going to be probably our captain this season, just based off of, experience in the league and pedigree in our team, how long he's been here, how well he's performed. He's really the only player I could see realistically taking it. Maybe a Camargo.
I think a Camargo could. He's been kind of one of our main guys, and I mean it goes to the fact, like, do we give the captaincy to someone that has been on the Cavalry, or do we give the captaincy to someone that we've just signed? Because we've signed some pretty leader players, and players that have that leadership mentality. One of the acquisitions we made, who I think has that leadership mentality, would be Nathan Ingram, the goalkeeper.
I think you can't give it to a player that just joined the team.
Yeah,
I think that sets the wrong precedent.
He was captain though for Atletico Ottawa, and took them to the finals. And he was actually a really good signing. If we were going to replace Carducci, we need to replace him with the best. And arguably, he's one of the best goalkeepers in the league right now, not counting Dimitri Bartod, because we've not seen a full season with him yet. He had 11 clean sheets last season, and of course won the CPL. And he's been a major leader for Atletico Ottawa. And after we've lost big leaders in the dressing room and stuff like that, he could be someone that could step up. Now, another thing I want to bring up is another guy that we got, and that is Amar Didic. We signed as well from Atletico Ottawa. We took Atletico Ottawa's players. Now, Amar Didic, it's quite interesting. So he's been one of the best center backs in the CPL. Last season, he was out for a majority of the season with a leg injury. But he could be someone that could step up and be a really big asset to the Cavalry FC's back line. He led the league in his best season. I'm just getting the stat up here. I know he led the league in clearances, I believe. Or 91 aerial duels. He won 91 aerial duels in 2024, his last full season, which led the league. And he was top 4 in some very, very good stats for a center back. And one of those included completed passes. And that's really big because the Cavalry, obviously with Tommy Wheeldon Jr.'s system, values a lot from playing from the back. We like to play from the back. We like Carducci passing it forward, and part of it was our center backs getting involved playing from the back, and we need a center back that is comfortable with playing with the ball, and also just really comfortable with just being a big body. He's 6'4", an absolute unit, and I know he'll be kind of hungry to play, obviously missing last season, most of last season with an injury. What's your thoughts on that signing?
I think it's a good player to bring in. I just think that the defense isn't necessarily the position that we need to focus on right now. He's a talented player. The only thing I worry about is he going to be the same now that he missed a full season? Basically, he went through that injury on his leg. I don't believe he'll be the same player, especially at age, I believe, 31. Coming back from that kind of injury is a lot more difficult. I do think it'll take a while for him to potentially get back up to speed, game speed, and I think he could be a good leader. I just think that if we're talking about who's going to be the next captain, giving it to someone that just came into the team, most of the rest of the team won't see that player as a leader.
Yeah, and
as a leadership role.
It
I
doesn't
think
seem fair.
it has to go to somebody that has been at the team for a while, speaks up in the dressing room, not just in the most recent season, even not even in just training camp. I think it has to be somebody that's been there, has been through the ups and downs with the team, knows how to navigate those kind of things. And I think giving it to an Ingham or a Didic wouldn't be fair to the rest of the players on the team. Mm-hmm. And I think it would not be the kind of captain that we're necessarily looking for at the moment.
And yeah, I agree. I think it wouldn't be fair necessarily to give it to one of those people. I think if we got a guy that played like last season for like a Premier League side and he's coming to play for our team, then sometimes that happens where you give them the captaincy just as a kind of a show of respect to coming down into this kind of league. Now, we made another signing, and I'm kind of excited for this signing. We signed Harry Patton. Now, CPL experience, he has a couple games under his belt, but not necessarily enough games to call him CPL experienced, but he is definitely experienced in the world of football, playing for Ross County and
didn't he play for Motherwell?
Motherwell, yeah, he played for Ross County and Motherwell in the Scottish Premier League, and he's going to be really interesting to see. He is our 100th signing of all time for the Cavalry FC, and he's going to be a very neat player to see. So I watched some highlight videos because I wanted to know who this Harry Patton guy is, and I stumbled across a video of his Ross County highlights from 2021, and I was just looking at what could he possibly bring to our side that we possibly could have needed. So Tommy Wheeldon, I read an article. He views him highly. Tommy Wheeldon actually coached him back in the day when he was coaching for I believe the U17 Canadian national team, and he actually coached Harry Patton, and he said he was a two-way type of player that was technically sound and technically gifted, and just a really good player that can connect the back line to the front line in which you would really want a midfielder to do. And I think it's actually honestly a really, really good signing. He also brings this physicality to the midfield. I was watching some of this kind of videos. He couldn't get like off the ball. They couldn't get the ball off of him. He was really, really strong and physical. And obviously coming from the Scottish Premier League is a more physical and aggressive league. They like to stick in their tackles, and as a kind of a technically gifted midfielder, that's not necessarily this big built, tall guy. He really shows his technical skill and his ability to shield the ball, and it's something in the midfield that we needed. I felt like last season watching the team, it sometimes felt that Toby was underutilized in that striker role because we couldn't get the ball to him. Some of the times we would be in the midfield and we would lose that ball in the midfield. We would lose our duels in the midfield, and it's something that we kind of needed to work on to really utilize a striker like Toby and just really utilize our wingers as well. I felt like there were some chances that were missed because we would lose that ball in critical places on the pitch. And I feel like having a midfielder that's technically gifted, one that is hard to get off the ball, but also can make incisive passes to our front line. I know Toby is probably one of the best guys, especially on our team, for his attacking runs and getting into spaces, and I feel like Harry Patton can find him, and he could be that player that could be getting assists for our team, seeing that we don't have a Moosey in the lineup. What's your thoughts on that signing?
I think he's a massively experienced player.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that worries me is, Ford signed him last year and only played him 4 times.
Yeah, that
why? Why did he only get 4 games? That worries me a bit.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of questions about our signings.
Yeah.
I think, they could potentially, work out for sure. It's just there's a lot of question marks around a lot of these guys. He came over, he came back to Canada and he played 4 games. It's a bit worrisome for me. Why wasn't he favored? His brother's on that team. You would think they'd want that kind of chemistry, but I'm not sure if he was potentially battling, injury as soon as he came over. But it's kind of another question mark for me.
And you just hope that it's not necessarily something that's really, really dangerous and bad. I mean, obviously, I think our signings are decent, but like you said, there is a lot of questions to whether they can play. Obviously, we've lost a lot of our big name players in the CPL, and we're losing a lot of those big locker room guys. And it's just something. It's like with these new signings that we've made. Obviously, as a team, I think it warrants being skeptical, and because we've seen success with the players that we've had previously, and yet the players that we got, I mean Didic and Ingham, both of them are technically CPL champions, but one of them, again, he was out for the whole season with an injury. So you just hope that those guys aren't out for injury, because we've signed them as these big name players, and in the CPL actually, there's not a lot of acquisitions. I found, especially our team, we've only signed 4 people, and we've lost like at least 7. And it's just whether we have the depth. Now, the good thing about that is we have a very good academy, and we have a lot of really good young players on our team, and it's gonna be really cool to see them kind of get filtered in to this lineup. We re-signed Holiday, which is I mean, it's a good signing. He didn't play that much games last season, if any, but he was. I think he's a young goalkeeper, and he's just an option if one of our goalkeepers gets injured, and he has CPL experience and he has experience playing. Now, I think the one thing, another thing is we got Nico on our team. We talked previously about Nico Myronik and his possible utilization the next following season, so the season that's coming up very shortly. And we said he could be possibly a guy that we can choose. And now, with the signings that we've made, it's getting closer and closer to reality in the sense of, I think Nico is going to have, he could have a breakout season, but he could have a season where he's getting a lot more game time than he did before, just because of his Cavalry FC experience. And, last season, it was kind of the first season in which Tommy Wheeldon was utilizing Nico more. He was coming off the bench more in games. He was even starting some games. And potentially now, I think we could focus on starting him even more, obviously being that kind of Cavalry proven player, and someone that could possibly be utilized. And now with the new signing, like Harry Padden, possibly could get, even better being alongside a Padden who has experience in Europe.
We signed another player, 23-year-old winger Nathaniel Edwards from TFC, and mostly TFC2. He played a lot of games for their MLS Next Pro team. He played one half of their game in the Canadian Championship. He had 5 goals and 6 assists in 49 matches in the MLS Next Pro. I think, it's a player that maybe given the opportunity could, kind of break out. He's clearly a talented player. He was in TFC's academy for a long time. He played at the University of Syracuse. I think he could be, a player that just needs those minutes, needs to be one of those guys that is relied on. I don't know if he's going to be a starter for us on that wing where Ali Musi's gap has been left. It's a bit of a question mark who's going to start there, but he's definitely in contention for it.
Well, definitely. I mean, if you look at the signings that we've made, we've only signed one winger, and that's him. And you look at the players that we've lost Nicholas Whaling, we've lost Ali Musi, and I think the striker, our left wing, a left wing and striker are definitely locks of being Gote and Toby, right? So I think that right wing spot is there for the taking for anyone that really wants to have the opportunity to step up and start for an esteemed CPL team in Calgary who has seen success and is kind of the only team outside of Ontario to see that success on a more regular basis.
Well,
and
we have Mael Henry on the team as well as a winger.
And he did play a couple of games for us last season.
He's 21 years old. He could, kind of break out as well. And I think it'll be kind of a fight between those two to take over that right wing position.
I'm excited for this season, like we said earlier, is because we've signed some depth players. It's really neat that this season could possibly be breakouts for quite a lot of players on our team that didn't have starts with the players that we had previously that are now no longer under contract. I'm really excited to see. I think it could be a breakout of young talent this season. And I know Tommy Wheeldon in the past, he really valued young players and he's kind of taken a lot of young players and has started them. Obviously, Nico being one of the most recent young players to see game time for the Cavalry. I don't know exactly when the transfer window ends for the CPL. I don't really know if they have one. Do you know when the transfer window ends for the CPL?
I don't know when it ends, but I know it's, I believe, until just before the start of the season.
Okay, so just before April then. So we still have time to sign a couple more people, and potentially maybe we sign another winger, or we sign another depth guy. I mean, honestly, if a thing comes out and there's a player that is very promising and very good, either CPL proven or MLS proven even, it's not. I mean, it doesn't really hinder us to try to sign those people, because obviously we need well, I think with our team it's something that the Cavalry needs to. It's a big test for them this season. Obviously they're coming off of a big loss, and they really want to do better. And I think last season we got third place, but we didn't necessarily start well. So I think it's another thing to try to start better. And I feel like with the Cavalry, we don't necessarily start really good any year. We kind of have a slow start, and then we get back into it and either go on to be top two or third place. So I feel like it's a big test for Tommy Wheeldon and his team to start on the winning front and really show. Like, I mean, another player that could possibly play that right wing position is Kanisha Elva. I mean, he plays cam and he plays striker, but he could possibly be kind of moved to that right wing spot. Maybe we play more of a central right wingers where they're playing like cams like Manchester United. Possibly with the players that we have, we could, because I know Gote could, and I know Kanisha could as well. Both of them being very promising players. One of them, of course, Gote, being one of our best players on our team. All right, it's 1:53. Can we get a little what's happening in the West Ham and Manchester United game?
Not much.
Not much?
It's 0-0 in the 38th minute. I think there's only been one shot from West Ham. I don't think Man U's gotten any shots on net.
That's not good.
They've gotten behind the defenders a couple times, called for offside, haven't scored. Man U does have one shot on target. 61% of the possession at the moment.
Yeah, that's what we thought. We would thought that we would have most of the possession, but I mean, 60-40 isn't like a terrible split. It's not necessarily one-sided.
And West Ham has a whopping 0.05 expected goals, and Man U has a 0.19 expected goals.
Wow. It's been a boring game. All right, so yeah, we kind of moved across the pond again. But now we're going to be, taking a train down to Spain. So, for the last couple minutes of this podcast episode, I just want to talk about what's happening in La Liga's title race. It's getting juicy. Barcelona is number one right now in La Liga, but they are only 1 point. Real Madrid is coming to try to take the title from them. And it is only 1 point between the two teams, and Real Madrid is kind of getting led by their main man right now, and that is Kylian Mbappe, or Mbappe madness right now. He's playing out of his mind.
Well,
he has 23 goals in 22 games.
Could we see a flip of the top two spots like we just did in the English Championship? Middlesbrough is now in first.
We could possibly see it. I mean, if you look at Mbappe right now, he's over a goal per game that he's played right now. And they've played 23 games this season, and he has 23 goals. So technically he is a goal per game, but he didn't play in one of those games. It shows this how much quality Mbappe has, where he's really showing that he is one of the best players and should not be reckoned with. And I think this could possibly be talking about an Mbappe Ballon d'Or situation.
Well, if you look at his goal-scoring acumen this season, he has 13 goals in 7 Champions League games.
It's absolutely nuts. We talked about Harry Kane, and he's doing well too. But Mbappe, he's just doing insane. And I think, the World Cup and the Champions League are two competitions that are going to kind of make or break who wins the Ballon d'Or. Real Madrid obviously aren't they? Are they in the automatic qualification, or are they just out now?
The Champions League?
Yeah.
They finished 9th in the table, so they have to go through another round.
Yeah, they have to go through another round. So obviously they're not doing great there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to make it. And another thing that's really, really cool is the World Cup's coming. And we all know Mbappe, when he plays for the French national team, kind of only in the World Cup, not really in the Euros, he plays out of his mind. And he plays like a player that is one that, gets the ball and you're scared that he has the ball. And it's something that could possibly mean we get a Ballon Mbappe moment coming up in next October. Now, I read an article, and I wanted to kind of know what your thoughts on this was. I read an article, and they were talking about Mbappe and his goal-scoring acumen for Real Madrid, and they were saying he could possibly be the player to beat Cristiano Ronaldo's certain records on Real Madrid. Do you think he is that player, or do you think he's just another good player that's played for Real Madrid?
Well, I think, he's obviously one of the best players of the generation, but I don't think those records will necessarily be touched.
Yeah.
Unless he stays there for the rest of his career.
Mm-hmm.
I believe those are pretty, set in stone.
Well, he already has 82 goals for Real Madrid in 90 games. So he's not, he's doing very well. And he's only been there for 2 seasons. So it is kind of crazy to see. He's obviously physical. He obviously has pace. He's obviously, you're talking about the best player, one of the best players in the world right now. He's obviously good. I don't necessarily think that he could beat Ronaldo's records. I don't know. Ronaldo's records are kind of some of those things with the big players on the team. They're meant to be broken, but they're you don't think anybody in your lifetime will be breaking those records, and I don't know if Mbappe could. Now, he would have to stay at the team for a while because he's already, if you think about it, he's already 27 years of age, 28 years of age. And Ronaldo, when he was on the team, was 24, I think, or 25 when he got onto Real Madrid. So, only time will tell, but I don't think Mbappe could get to that level. So now we've kind of gone to the end of our show. We talked a lot about the CPL in this show because we haven't talked about the CPL in a while. And our bio on Instagram says we talk about the CPL. And of course we do. And we love the league so much.
You want to know what's crazy to me?
Yes.
Thomas Suchek is only 3 years older than Kylian Mbappe.
Really?
Yep.
Oh my God.
Mbappe is 27. Suchek is 30.
Oh. That's kind of a crazy thing.
No one would know. No one would guess that.
So, do you want to do your sign off, Zach?
Bonjour, au revoir, and have a great rest of your day.
All right. So let's hope Manchester United wins, and we'll see you next time.